Hello, everyone. It's Monday, June 1st, and we've got a good bit of stuff to go over today, but unfortunately, we have to start with our 75th death. We lost another individual, a 96-year-old male from Fayette County. Just think of all the goodness that person brought over the decades and wisdom that was given to so many, and especially their loved ones and their friends, and so we celebrate this person's life. And I ask you again to keep this person as well as their loved ones and their family in your thoughts and your prayers. And a great West Virginian, a 96-year-old male from Fayette County. Before we go any further at all, I want to talk about what's going on in our nation. First and foremost, all of us saw what happened to Mr. George Floyd and the tragedy that was. We saw, a situation to where I don't see how in the world a thing like that could happen in the first place, and especially when an individual is crying out, and saying they can't breathe. I recognize, the fact that I can't see how any West Virginian could think that that's excusable, and we don't. But I want to go more steps further and just say just this. America is the place that we all have so much love and so much pride for. And we make a lot of mistakes. I mean, this democracy is sometimes very, very difficult and sometimes really messy. We need to make change as we go forward in lots of ways, and we do that as a nation. Sometimes it comes about quickly and sometimes it comes about slowly. But America today is hurting in a lot of different ways. Now, that doesn't take away in any way the pain and the hurt that the Floyd family is experiencing, because that's bad. That's really bad. And we all recognize that. But if you look at the place we live, America, and you just think just for a second about how great a country we really are, and how the fact that we've lost in excess of 100 and some odd thousand people with this pandemic. And right behind that, like it or not like it, but we're in an economic meltdown. And if that's not enough, now we've got a situation to where we've got a lot of unhappy, or if you want to be more, severe, out of control people that are burning our cities and our businesses and carrying on in a way that surely is no good. I mean, it just hurts all of us. But if you look back and you just think just this, here comes West Virginia again. Every single last one of us believe that we have the rights and we should exercise those to protest in peaceful manners, to get our points across, to absolutely convince others of that our points are valid, and we should recognize the problem and we should address it. We have had multiple protests, if you want to call them that, or just people that are out expressing their rights and everything in West Virginia. But how have you done it? How have you done it in West Virginia? You've done it in a peaceful manner. You've done it in a way that absolutely recognizes you as saying, this is a problem and recognizes the goodness that you're doing absolutely again. I could not possibly be more proud of you. Absolutely all of us should recognize that we have the right, the God-given right in this country to be able to protest. And West Virginians, if you choose to do so and do so in a peaceful manner, then absolutely you will be duly noted in every way. Now, I can promise you just this, that I hope and pray with all in me that in West Virginia we will be the guiding light again. We will be the guiding light as we've been in this pandemic, in our economic recovery. We will be the guiding light that will move us forward in a positive way, in a good way. I listen so closely to people from the Martin Luther King family and how they express their views, and their views are exactly like the West Virginians are doing and have done already. Their views are exactly this. Why resort to violence and things like that? And if you just think about it, in a lot of these cities and what's going on is there's people from out of state that are coming into these cities and recruited by people that really want evil. And as they bring them into these cities and everything, I will promise you, if they bring them to West Virginia, they will find out that they will absolutely not be welcomed in the most stringent ways. So, I would tell you just this. West Virginians, follow those of the Martin Luther King family. Follow those thoughts and prayers and guidelines of strength, and strength without violence, and strength that has carried us to where you are again right now, West Virginia, first and front and foremost. I just got off the phone, or just got off a teleconference with the president, the vice president, the attorney general. There was lots and lots of people on that call, and all of them were speaking of the goodness of protesters and the badness. And so we need, as West Virginians, to continue to just do the great stuff that you're already doing. And I'm really proud of you, really proud, because I know the situation that happened in Minneapolis was terrible. And so as we move forward, West Virginia, just keep doing all the great stuff you do, from the standpoint of all those out there in law enforcement and everything. Know that I stand rock solid with you, and I'm so proud of you. It's unbelievable. And to be perfectly honest, you're showing all kinds of wonderful restraint. But at this time, what we should do is express our voices by peaceful protest, and absolutely we should go forward and do that in West Virginia in a way that makes us greater and greater and greater. I could never in the world express it more bluntly than to tell you just how proud I am of you and how good and that you are, and absolutely I understand your frustrations and all that, and we want to try to help in every way. But you are setting an example that absolutely cannot be topped. Just keep doing great stuff, West Virginia. Couldn't be more proud. Now, if I could jump back to our reopenings, this is week 6 of West Virginia Strong, the comeback reopening plan. A round of reopenings will begin on June the 5th. These will be the casinos and the movie theaters. There's guidance available on my website, to all, the guidance is that we should expect the movie theaters and the casinos to abide by. On June the 8th, we will allow youth low contact sport, practicing to begin, with games allowed on June the 22nd. We should always know just this too. Every bit of this is a fluid situation. It is just as fluid as it can possibly be. And if we get something that jumps up and jumps at us and everything in an ugly way, we'll adjust. But right now, what we're planning to do is we're planning to start practicing on June the 8th and play games on June the 25th. Okay, they just handed me a sheet of paper there. I wanted to make sure what it was. Okay, I want to report into you on Huttonsville. The Huttonsville prison update is this: all the results have now been returned, and we have two additional positives inmates, making that a total of 118 positives. All the staffs has been tested, no additional positives there. We've tested 149 inmates at other facilities with 0 positives. That's really, really good stuff. The Division of Corrections is surely on top of this, and they're providing constant updates. And I want to thank the Division of Corrections, the Department of Homeland Security, and the National Guard for all their work in responding to this outbreak. You see, at the end of the day, what we've done here is we've run to the fire again. And as we run to the fire and everything, we hope and pray that every one of these inmates and or staff that we have tested positive at Huttonsville end up getting well and all is well in the neighborhood. But absolutely, we also are testing those in the community, and I don't have any of the test results back on the community yet and everything, but the net of the whole thing is right now, thus far, we have tested a good many inmates in other facilities without a positive coming back. That's great stuff, and we want to just continue to stay on top of the Huttonsville situation, and if we can continue to do just that, that's exactly what we ought to be doing. As we run to the fire, and we absolutely try to put the fire out with the greatness of all the people that are working on it. Now, as far as those cities and counties that are applying, for the CARES Act money, now we have received and completed 14 of those applications, and you'll be hearing from our people, as you already, I'm sure, have, and we'll be pumping the money out to you. As far as additional free testing for minorities and other vulnerable West Virginians, they'll be testing in McDowell, Ojai, and Harrison counties on Friday. And this optional testing, naturally, we've said over and over, will be free to all residents in these counties, including those that have no symptoms whatsoever. And the DHHR and the local health departments will have support from the West Virginia National Guard, and all of them will be conducting this testing. I want to give you an update on the economics of the state. The May collections were nearly 33.7 above expectation, and so the numbers, while the total numbers still don't look very good, the total numbers are much, much, much better than what we thought they were going to be. When we originally looked at this pandemic and what it was going to happen, we anticipated that by the end of the year, we would be $500 million upside down. And on the initial look, the only way to cure that situation and get you through the end of the year was a multitude of different things, plus calling the legislature back into session and invading the rainy day fund. Now, since then, what's happened is just this. And I can tell you this without going into deep detail. The detail is surely here, but I can tell it to you just this way. What's happened is just this, is we have done better in the revenue collections, in really the tail end of April and throughout all of May than we thought we were going to do. As far as our cash on hand, our cash continued to come in better than we thought it was going to be. We first thought, well, if we could get to June the 10th or 12th with our cash, it would be really good. Then we were hoping to be able to get to June the 15th with our cash, and that's with no revenue backfilling from the federal government, which I still believe they will enable us to do. Now, but then the guidelines started to change, and the guidelines started to ease back off. And so from the guidelines changing and easing back off like I've told you that they were going to do, then what's happened now is we've been able to come back, and probably we will be able to pick up an additional $150 million plus or minus. Now, as we're able to do that, this amount of hole in the bucket just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And the cash to get to the end of the year now looks like it is absolutely solid, that we will be able to get to the end of the year, June 30th, with good, solid cash, and we'll be able to make that. So that's what I've said over and over about this from the standpoint of calling us back, invading the rainy day fund. I don't think right now we need to do either one, and I'm very, very hopeful that there's going to be an additional stimulus or a changing of the guidelines that's going to allow us to get really right in and be able to backfill those revenue dollars. Now, you've got to know this, from the counties and the cities standpoint, every time that they absolutely change any of these guidelines for the state, they are positively affecting the counties and the cities as well. And so as they change those guidelines, the minute they change those guidelines, we'll open up another round of application process and everything for the cities and the counties, and they'll be able to go back and backfill as well. So we'll have significant dollars that should flow to the cities and the counties. I am very, very, very hopeful that we will have some dollars that we can play with and look at how we can best help our small businesses. But in addition to that, we've got to help the mothership, and the mothership is the state. The state has got to stay on solid ground, because if the state's not on solid ground, the cities and counties won't be on solid ground either. Now, you've got to understand, though, that without question, in the month, when we finished the month of April, well, let me go back. When we finished March, we were like $6 million short of estimate of where we thought we were going to be. Now, at that point in time, if we don't have a pandemic, in April and May and June, we would eke past our estimates and absolutely end up in a surplus in a year that early on, if you'll remember, we were looking like we had to make $100 million of budget cuts and go in and cut individuals and everything mid-year and make cuts, whether we laid people off or did some systematic cutting, whatever it may be. And we've avoided that for sure. And then along came this pandemic. And so for all practical purposes, we were totally shut down in April. And all of a sudden, in the month of April, that $6 million hole that we were in March went to $198 million hole. And at that point in time was when all of my advisors were telling me, Governor, you're going to be at a $500 million shortfall. And so what we've done is we've gone to work. We've done everything that you can possibly do. We've pushed the federal government on the easing of guidelines, and they have. And so today, May, which we were anticipating would come in at $60 to $70 million of shortfall, May came in at shortfall. So May was significantly better, and we are now at 236.4. And we have not backfilled any dollars that the guidelines are allowing us to do. Now, the other thing you've got to remember is this. We shifted to July 15th, $200 million of income tax collections. If we'd have had that $200 million on April 15th, for all practical purposes, you'd be $36 million in the hole right now. And so that's sitting out there in July. But in addition to that, there is significant backfilling that we can do against this 236 right now. And as we go through June with the guidelines and everything we have, you know, like I've said over and over and over, we're going to be okay. I mean, West Virginia economically is going to be okay. Let me just say this, that income, wage, and salary withholding tax collections were $18 million above the reduced expectations for the month, and sales tax collections were 14.5 ahead of the reduced expectations for the month. Now, what that means is this, is those numbers of 18 ahead and 14.5 ahead were numbers that were ahead of the numbers that were put together in April that said we're going to be $500 million in the hole. So while the numbers are still net not great, we're trending in a way that West Virginia economically is going to be fine. Last thing I've got is the thing that I just keep beating every day, and that is just this, the census. Please get counted, West Virginians. It is terribly, terribly, terribly important. And please do this. Keep all those that we're seeing on television right now in every way, plus this terrible devastation of this pandemic that has absolutely ripped through all of us in every way. Please keep all those people in your thoughts and your prayers, and let's pray for goodness and peace and change and all the different things that we may need in this nation as we continue to grow and try to reach out and love one another as best we possibly can. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Governor. First, let's go to Major General Hoyer with the West Virginia National Guard.
Good afternoon. As we enter the 80th day, just want to highlight a couple of milestones. I know the Secretary will talk later about the significant number of testing went on this weekend, over 3,000. In addition to that, over the last 80 days, the Guard has assisted our local partners in packing and delivering 320,000 meals. We've engaged with 793 businesses in support of subject matter expertise, sanitization, and other activities. 101 medical facilities have been assisted with training and PPE training as well. We've assisted with broadband development implementation for local areas that needed support for telemedicine, have assisted our partners at Workforce West Virginia based on the governor's direction to deal with backlogs that occurred, supported DHHR with over 9,200 COVID mapping assignments, supported test lanes that have supported over 10,000 individuals being tested. And just to put in perspective, one task force that provides support of our multiple task force engaged have driven in the last 80 days 125,000 miles across the state of West Virginia. In other words, 5 times around the world. So Governor and I both appreciate the great work of the Guardsmen, our local partners, our state partners, and all that have been engaged in these initiatives going forward and doing the best that we can to take care of all the citizens of the state of West Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Next, we'll go to Dr. Clay Marsh, our coronavirus czar.
Well, good afternoon. It's wonderful to be with everybody. Today, I want to report that our R naught or our actual value is close to 1. And as we know at that level, that means that the virus has started to sort of equilibrate where, if it goes over 1, that implies the virus is starting to spread. And if it's below 1, that implies that the virus is slowing down its spread. One thing I'd like to touch on today is the impact of this virus on rural America. And when the virus first started in China and then moved to Europe, then mostly the first places that had a lot of challenges with COVID-19 were in metropolitan areas and areas of more connectivity. We live in a very interconnected world. And so things spread quickly. And on the first phase, we saw a lot of big cities with a lot of people, populated places like New York City that really, really struggled with COVID and still has many challenges to go. Similarly, we saw other population centers in New Jersey, in Connecticut, et cetera, Washington State. Now, California is building up. But I think what's really important for us in West Virginia, by being the most vulnerable state in the country, we now know that the secondary effect on the kind of the second round as we in this suppression stage or the hammer stage and start to reopen, come back together, the dance, as Thomas Puyo has called it, where we're learning to live with the virus, that secondarily, many rural places in our country are being affected by the COVID virus now. And that's happened in large part because of either congregate settings, and we've heard about Huttonsville and prisons and other food processing plants in these communities where people have gotten the virus and taken it back to the community, or also for people coming in who are either tourists or people that are coming in to work. So we have to be very cognizant that at this point, as we come back out and reopen West Virginia again, that we're going to have many different influences coming into our state. And as we open up our wonderful tourist destinations and open up the beautiful state of West Virginia to our neighbors, then it's really, really important that everybody pays special attention to protecting yourself and protecting your neighbors and protecting the state by doing the things that we have talked about. And I won't belabor again, but recognize that this next phase of the virus, and it may be better during the summer as people are outside and UV light makes the virus live less long, but we still have the potential to get infected and to spread that infection to other people. So as you have been doing such a great job so far, keep it up, West Virginia, but pay particular attention to this part of the cycle of dealing with the COVID virus, because in many ways, this part is going to be the trickiest and perhaps the most dangerous to the rural parts of our communities that house so many vulnerable people. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Marsh. Next, we'll go to the West Virginia DHHR with Secretary Bill Crouch and Dr. Cathy Slim.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to talk just a minute about one nursing home in the state. Sundale Nursing and Rehabilitation Center in Monongalia County was our first nursing home to have a positive COVID patient. That was on March 22nd. Just received a text from them a short time ago to tell me they are COVID free. I responded with a congratulations and thanking them for what they did. Their response was to thank the governor that on March 23rd, the governor activated the National Guard to go up and test patients and employees at Sundale Nursing Home. So I want to thank the CEO, Mike Hicks, and Dr. Carl Schrader, the medical director, and also the employees. The employees are truly the heroes in this. They, as the governor says, they go to the fire, run to the fire daily. And this is a situation where being the first in the state, not knowing what to expect, those employees ran to the fire every day in and day out and day in and day out until at this point, they can have a little celebration that they've beat this disease at this point. So we appreciate what all of you have done, and thank you. And we thank the governor for his immediate response to this and facilitating the testing of the employees and keeping this outbreak to a minimum. So with that, Cathy's going to give a report on some other facility testing this last weekend.
Certainly, and Sundale has been a great partner to work with in this investigation, and also our appreciation for the work the local health department has done in partnership with them as well. These are definitely collaborative efforts in each of these situations. To speak a little more to the testing that's been going on around the state, I believe they're going to have a slide that shows the folks that came out this weekend for the testing in Berkeley, Fayette, Jefferson, Kanawha, Mineral, and Morgan. So that was 3,371 individuals, I believe, who came out for testing. So our thanks to all who worked to operationalize that this weekend and who participated and came out for testing. The reports for week one's testing, which was Berkeley, Jefferson, Mercer, and Raleigh, that report is up on the website under the public, listed there. And then the week two report has also been posted there, and that was Cabell, Kanawha, Marion, and Mon. Again, covering about 3,058 individuals in that one. That was the May 22nd, 23rd testing. So that's been posted and available for your review if you'd like to see that. And then finally, a separate initiative, the governor referenced the testing in Randolph County. That went very well this weekend. That was under the leadership of the local health department and local partners and with the National Guard and DHHR. They had 808 individuals attending. And so far, with about 70% of the results in, everything has been negative so far to date. More to come. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you both. Once again, we're holding today's briefing with media members joining us virtually to practice good social distancing. The first questioner we have today is Steve Adams with Ogden Newspapers.
Yes, Steve Adams of Ogden Newspapers here. In regards to your comments about the protests and praising West Virginia, I know the Associated Press was also reporting information out of that conference call you were on this morning, where President Trump had basically told governors that they needed to have stronger reactions to what was going on. Obviously, peaceful protests have taken place in West Virginia. But should those turn unpeaceful, have you all discussed exactly what the state's plans would be should that circumstance happen? Thank you.
Stephen, the definition of unpeaceful, I guess, is somewhat difficult, but if you were to say the situation turns violent or the situation turns rioting, then absolutely I would instantly call in the National Guard and I would call them in a forceful way. Let's hope and pray that we don't have any type of situation like that, irregardless of anyone's color of skin or whatever it may be. We cannot have people that are, and I just can't fathom that would come from any West Virginians, but people coming in from out of our state, from out of state, fanning, evil fires and everything, can cause a lot of problems. And I will promise you that those people will not be greeted in a very hospitable way. The police efforts in our cities and our counties are, they're the first line of defense, but at the same time, we don't need a first line of defense right now. What we need is just this. We need people to express their right of freedom of speech and freedom to be able to protest and freedom to get their points across and everything in a positive way. And we welcome that. We welcome that. And I would be the first to say, with all in us, all of us, watched that horrific event that happened with Mr. George Floyd, and it was terrible. It was beyond all comprehension terrible. We get it. We get it. That's all there is to it. And we cannot have things like that going on. But absolutely, there is nothing to gain by people turning violent and rioting and burning their own stores and their own cities down. It is absolutely just inexcusable to me. And so let's hope and pray we don't get anything like that, and I don't think we will in West Virginia.
All right, thank you, Steve. Next, we'll go to Kenny Bass with WCHS and Fox 11.
Thank you. This is Kenny Bass with Channel 8 and Fox 11 in Charleston. Governor, I'm going to mix the two big headlines, the two big stories that we're dealing with. And one is the atrocity that happened in Minnesota, and the other is the continuing reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic. Your safer at home order, and this may seem trivial, but I just want to try to get an understanding of what your thinking is on it. Your safer at home order says that we're going to limit gatherings of 25 or more people in public just to be cautious and to maintain social distancing and masks and everything like that. And obviously this weekend that kind of went out the window and there wasn't much enforcement. Is that going to be the way we go forward, that some events are just so politically and societally tinged with emotion that we're going to back off from the COVID-19 precautions? Or is that something that hasn't been addressed? Or is it something that's going to change as we move forward?
Well, Kenny, first and foremost, let's hope and pray that we don't get into a situation to where, that is going to cause us more exposure to COVID-19. We all know, it's like, I hate it like crazy in every way to see that terrible event happen in Minneapolis from the standpoint of just this. The reaction is everywhere. I let off by saying, I don't know how, America is one strong place, but I don't know how much more America can take. There's 3 cannonballs right to the stomach, boom, boom, boom. Pandemic, an economic meltdown, and now this, to where people are torn apart and literally, good people are just ripped apart and everything. And so as we go forward, I hope like crazy that this is not going to, blossom into a situation that's going to cause us more and more potential, COVID-19 problems. We have a right of free speech, and we should treasure that always. We welcome peaceful protest. I would say, going back to Dr. Marsh, if you were in a peaceful protest with a gathering in excess of 25 people, surely to goodness, please at least wear masks and stay a little bit apart, as apart as you possibly can. And all I can do is urge people to be responsible in their conduct and what they do, and protect themselves against this terrible pandemic and this terrible disease.
All right, thank you, Kenny. Next, we'll go to Charles Young with WV News.
Hi, this is Charles Young with WV News. I'd like to kind of follow up on what Kenny said. I'd like to have Dr. Marsh weigh in. What, from a healthcare perspective, what do we think the impact of these gatherings around the state are going to be in our coronavirus fight?
Governor, do you want to start? Do you want me to take it?
No, go ahead.
So thanks for the question. I think that, it depends on how we behave. Ultimately, as the governor said, we both cherish our First Amendment rights to free speech and to demonstrate peacefully, but we also know that the coronavirus, COVID-19, thrives on person-to-person contact. we have seen our R0 value, our reproductive score, the way that COVID spreads, starting to inch up around the country as well as here in West Virginia. We are counting on our citizens to do the great job that they did in this first part of the COVID pandemic. But as the governor said, there is multiple different issues that have now coalesced to really make the spread of COVID much, much more likely all around the country. And the same is true for people in West Virginia. So if you do feel the need to go protest, which is great, then as the governor said, we recommend that people wear face coverings or face masks. And again, remember, you're protecting others from you, not just you from others when you wear the face mask, which says that you care about the people with you, and stay outside as much as you can when you protest. And then ultimately, if we can stay some distance away from each other as we're walking, that would help as well. But the key, I think, is be in a face covering, a face mask, and try to keep your peaceful protests outside. I think that's the two things we can do to have the best opportunity to give people that right to protest, to take their First Amendment rights safely, and not necessarily accelerate the spread of the COVID virus.
Thank you, Charles. Next, we'll go to Katie Coyne with the Charleston Gazette-Mail.
Hi. So, Dr. Marsh, you talked briefly about rural areas and how we could see more of an effect there. As everything is reopening, other states have taken to taking down information of people with contact tracing in restaurants, businesses, stuff like that. Is there anything like that going on here? And if not, what is the threat of having more people in a place without knowing how to contact them if, there is an infection there? And just if we have a ballpark number, how many contact tracers are employed and working in the state right now?
Okay, I think Secretary Crouch and Dr. Slim maybe can handle this question a whole lot better than I.
I'll just mention, I'll start. This is Bill Crouch. Thank you, Governor. I will start by first thanking our DHHR employees. We had 33 was the last count I had last week who have signed up for training and who have become contact tracers. So we have a lot of employees who are still working from home and are fitting this into their schedule, and we appreciate that. We're looking at a number that somewhere in the neighborhood of 275 or so. Cathy, I think, has more information on the exact numbers we have.
Yeah, and I think we just start with the fact that most of our contact tracers are really at the local level, and that's what's been happening all along. So health departments have worked to reassign employees. I was talking to one yesterday that's got 10 or 11 that have been reassigned and working with partners to do this work. And it's not just contact tracing. It is a case investigation and then following individuals through the contact tracing process and then the management of the situation to follow. So that really has happened through the network of local health departments working with partners in this work. And they have experience in doing this every day with other diseases as well and know their communities. So they have been rapidly expanded their local capacity, and we need to continue to support that development of expansion at the local level of that capacity and infrastructure. We are also, as Secretary Crouch and others have mentioned, and as we've been guided federally as well, really building some additional supports so that those can rapidly be shifted and moved as necessary to support localities when they are needing surge. And so that is what's actually underway. That is what the Secretary spoke to in terms of right now. We have utilized both some volunteers and some reassigned DHHR employees, trained many of them, I think 70 or 80 in the last week or two along those lines, have deployed some for use in local communities and continue to work with that. The other piece that's really important that goes with that is upgrading the IT systems that will allow people to more flexibly enter the information and visualize and use the information to follow up. So it's an evolving system and one that's going to keep growing more actively.
All right, thanks, Katie. Next, we'll go to Tori Yorgi with WSAZ.
Hi, this is Tori Yorgi with WSAZ. I know we've had a few questions on it and touched on it briefly, but I've had several business owners call into the newsroom concerned about after spending thousands of thousands of dollars reopening their business. You know, if another shutdown were to happen, would they have to close again? They say that, you know, it's really detrimental to their businesses, and with all the protests going on, they're just worried. So should they be worried? Do we see this coming up in the future?
Well, that's for me to answer. They ought to be worried. That's all there is to it. We're dealing with a invisible killer in this pandemic. We don't have a drug that's going to turn it to a common cold yet. We think that's coming right around the corner. We think there's a vaccine coming right behind that. We have an SBA, the original small business administration loan was to be forgiven if you had a payroll over 8 weeks. That's been expanded to 24 weeks now. Thank goodness, because a lot of our people, were still not back to work over the 8-week period. And so the federal government, as you'll see, is trying to continue to work with us. And now we have a situation to where, there's activity across our nation that's surely not the type of activity that we want to see from the standpoint of a lot of people are being endangered and businesses are being burned, and a lot of issues that we've got going on there as well. So absolutely they should be concerned, but I want to end by saying just this. In West Virginia, you are surrounded by the very best people in the land. We don't have people burning buildings. We have the most kind and civil and voiceful protests that could possibly be. And I don't even know if voiceful is a word or not. But nevertheless, what I'm trying to say is those people that are protesting in our neighborhood, or in our cities, or at our capital, are doing it in a way to show how strong their voice really is. They're not doing it in a way of violence or harm. They're doing it in a way that they are not happy with what's going on. And that will get results and everything. Now, from the standpoint of our businesses in West Virginia, you have a state that is not economically melting down. You have a state that is in pretty solid ground. And as we move forward with the additional guidelines or stimulus backfilling, you have a state that is rock solid. You have a state that was producing surplus after surplus and going in the direction that we wanted it to go in. Now, from the standpoint of a state that is prime in the focus of the whole world as the state that pulled off the miracle beyond belief with the pandemic, the state that's growing and building surplus after surplus, the state that people are going to want to come to, absolutely, you should not be concerned. You should be enthusiastic and absolutely delightful over the fact of what is about to happen and what is going to come to West Virginia. More and more and more job opportunities, more and more goodness for our people is right around the corner. Now, that's what I think is going to happen, but at the same time, I'm always concerned. So it's a great question. I wish to goodness that I could just alleviate all the concern and say, the federal government, the stimulus package is going to be perfect. All of our conduct is going to be perfect. And absolutely we're just going to take off West Virginia and go. Some way, somehow, we're going to pull that off, but I can't tell you that there's not going to be some rough seas in front of us.
All right, thank you, Tori. Next, we'll go to Brad McElhenney with West Virginia Metro News.
Hi, Governor. Hi, everyone. Governor, I'm curious about your impression of the call with President Trump and others. I'm seeing some news reports that President Trump urged the nation's governors to use force and take back the streets, and that the president may have called Some or All Governors Week and urged them to dominate protesters. How would you characterize that call?
Well, to be perfectly honest, the president always just speaks up and speaks his mind. He's really, you could tell that he was surely frustrated. Frustrated from the standpoint that he sees what's going on in this great nation. He's dealt with this pandemic. He's watched 100,000 plus people die. He sees the magnitude of the issues and the problems, and he knows without any question that the looting and the violence has got to stop. Just think about it for just a second. If the looting and the violence doesn't stop, what's going to happen? Are we truly respecting Mr. George Floyd? Are we truly doing that? If in fact what happens is we end up losing a lot of other people, or we end up losing the most innocent of all, are we doing the right thing there? Of course we're not. And so therefore the president is saying, we've got to stop it, and we've got to stop it right now. Now surely it may be words that you or whomever may think, well, those words are too tough, or those words are this or that and everything else. But that's how the president speaks. That's just his lingo and everything. We've got to always remember, President Trump came from New York and everything, and those people speak their minds. Well, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I think really and truly that's how we should be in a lot of ways. We should speak the truth, and we should speak our minds and everything. Now, I'm sure he was frustrated today, and at the end of the day, though, we surely can't sit back and watch our White House burn to the ground, or our cities whether they be in LA or New York or Philadelphia, just torn all to pieces and everything, because a lot of the very people that are causing all these problems, are the people that shop in those stores, and they go get their groceries, or they go get their medicines there. We can't sit back and just say it's okay. Well, I mean, it's not okay to do that.
All right, thanks, Brad. Next, we'll go to Dave Mistich with West Virginia Public Broadcasting. It looks like we're having trouble connecting there. How about Paul Mullen with WCBC? Paul?
Good afternoon, Governor. Good afternoon, panel. Question about the towns and cities and counties that have not filed for CARES Act money. Governor, you referred to this last week. Is there a reason for that? Do they have are the applications highly technical in nature? Is it a staffing problem? Is there anything you can do to help?
Well, I think all the time that there's always something that I can do. I go back to my dad. Remember about the story I've told you many times about me standing in front of his desk and saying, Dad, there wasn't anything I could do. And all of a sudden, I found myself, with his hands around my shirt and me hitting the desk and him saying, Dadgum you. And he didn't say Dadgum you, but he said, dang you, there's always, there's always something you can do, and you better, dadgum, always remember that. Well, the long and the short of it is just this, is I will always believe that I'm here to be able to assist and help. Now, as far as a staff processing, no, that's not the issue at all. The problem, the way I see the whole thing right now, is that the application process to be able to qualify is so direct to COVID-19 that it makes it very difficult for people to realize that of how they can recoup dollars the way the guidelines are right now. As the guidelines change, as I've said so many times, as those guidelines change, that absolutely the cities and the counties will be able to access dollars that today they don't think they can do. So the amount of applications we're getting in are nowhere close to what we are hopeful that people are going to send. But I encourage them in every way, that to go ahead and send their applications, even though at this point in time, that from the county standpoint and the city standpoint today, the guidelines are difficult and they're too restrictive, but we are getting new guidelines right along. And so I would say that even if your amount of dollars that you're sending in and everything, or you could send in maybe minuscule today, at least get in the process and start sending them in.
All right, thanks, Paul. We'll try Dave Mistich one more time. Dave?
Thank you. Governor, this question's for you. In seeing, some of the reactions to some of these protests around the country, there's been reports of journalists being met by police officers using force. There's been protesters that have had force, used upon them. So far to date, have you given any instruction to West Virginia State Police, the National Guard, Homeland Security, any law enforcement in the state on how to handle these situations? Should protests, go sideways in any particular way?
Well, first and foremost, all these agencies you're speaking of have all kinds of protocol on how to handle, how to administer force, or how to handle situations, and all of them. We've talked to all these agencies and everything about the right and proper way to do everything. I believe that they train regularly on this, and I just can't fathom. I can't fathom one of our West Virginia police or National Guard or whomever it may be behaving in the way that with what happened with George Floyd, or Mr. George Floyd in Minneapolis. That's not going to happen in West Virginia. And the West Virginia police forces and the West Virginia State Police and the West Virginia Guard and everything, we're not that. And so, but at the same time, from the standpoint of what is going on today, well, every situation in the world is going on, good and bad. And so we've got to be on our best game as far as how to handle this, because people are hurting and people are frustrated, and at the same time, we've got to protect our properties and people's rights to those properties, and we've got to police and to protect our people as well. So I don't see a problem in West Virginia today, and I hope and pray that we don't end up with a problem, because if we end up with a problem, I'll react, and I'll react immediately. We're not going to let our cities be burned down and everything, and not end up with a lot of people arrested, and I just hope and pray we're not going to get into anything like that.
All right, thanks, Dave. Governor, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, it's not been a very good day from the standpoint of the fact that we lost another West Virginian. We've got a thing that's going on in our country that is not good. We've got a lot of upset people and frustrated people, and then we've got a lot of actions of people, that are infiltrating those people and pushing them to some level of violence and everything that is not producing a good day. Now, I will say this though. West Virginia has done so good, and you have been the beacon of our nation in almost every way. And I pray that absolutely you will continue to be that beacon. You know, West Virginia was always the place where everybody kind of kicked around and looked down on and everything, and oh, how you've changed that. And you've given me the honor of leading you into that change. And I pray in every way that we'll continue to just show the world just how good we really are. I congratulate Sundale Nursing Home, you know, on the good stuff and good work that they're doing there. I congratulate all those that ran to that fire as soon as that fire broke out. As the same, whether it may be at Huttonsville or wherever it may have been, you know, we have done so much good, but all that good will be eradicated if we start doing things that absolutely cast bad, dark shadows on West Virginia. You know, we don't need thunderstorms that are going to cause us problems. We need change and voices heard, and they will be duly noted. Now, I say over and over and over, you know, that if you'll just look at Philadelphia, or you'll look at maybe New York or wherever it may be, what's to gain? What's to gain by all the pain? What is to gain? You know, there's no question that what went on in Minneapolis was bad, just bad. I don't care whomever it may be, any and every police officer would say disgraceful. That's all there is to it. But absolutely, we've got to go on. And we've got to look at voicing ourselves in a way that our voices are really heard. When you get into this situation here, you get people that are pushing back. You got one side that's saying, for crying out loud, I'm not going to listen to those people, I'm going to push back. And you got another side that's saying, let's push even more. And before you know it, you've got losses of lives, and you've disrespected Mr. George Floyd in lots of ways. We don't want to do that in West Virginia. Let's continue to do all the goodness that we already have over and over and over. And before I go, I want to just say just this. In Nicholas County today, we are groundbreaking. They just gave me this just a second ago. You know, we had a great big issue up in Nicholas County and everything, and, you know, about moving to schools or consolidation and all that kind of stuff. And look what, by working together, we got worked out. You know, there was a lot of people that were upset here too. You know, we didn't do anything violently or anything like that. People just voiced their opinions, and look what happened from the voicing of those opinions. Now, people were absolutely, you know, very, very strong voices on both sides of this issue. And as we work through all the wickets, just think about this. We are breaking ground today in Nicholas County, West Virginia, to where we are building a pre-K through 12 facility, major renovations to the Cherry River Elementary School, and we're building a Richwood middle high school from grade 6 through 12, and all that is happening today. We're breaking ground in Richwood. In addition to that, we're building a new Summersville Middle School serving grades 6 through 8. And in addition to that, we have a new comprehensive Nicholas County High School that includes a career and technical center with advanced curriculum. And all of this together totals projects that we are doing in Nicholas County, where we're breaking ground today, of, get this number, $177 million. It required a 10% match from us, or $17.7 million from the state, of which we were able to do, and therefore just think of what happened when we said we were closing the Richwood High School and we're moving this and doing this, and we had everybody all up in arms and everything. And look what we did. Everybody voiced their opinions. Everybody worked on it. All the legislature worked on it. Everybody here worked. And we worked in a way of voicing of opinions. There was some level of protest. And at the end of the day, $177 million land in Nicholas County, West Virginia. Not only will we reap benefits from all the construction that's going on there and all the multiplier effect of all those dollars within our state, but those kids and those teachers will now have new facilities to be able to work and do the great work that I know they're going to do. So let that be our beacon. Let that be a beacon today of how we do stuff in West Virginia. So they just handed me this. I had no idea what I was going to say in regard to this, but absolutely, I truly believe that the good Lord, gives me the thoughts and the ideas, and I'm just here as his vehicle. So with all that being said, again, West Virginians have just shown how great they are right there in Nicholas County, and the results are off the chart. And so let's just continue to make more and more goodness happen in West Virginia. In some way, we'll get over the hurtfulness and maybe improve things substantially in lots of ways for lots of different good people. So anyway, thank you so much. God bless you.